Am I the a-hole for refusing to sign my parents' house, which is under my name, over to my wife if I die? So here is the backstory. In 2008, my parents lost most of their money, and it got to the point they were no longer able to afford their house. My dad is quite a bit older than my mom, and his biggest worry is that he is not able to leave her enough to live and pay for a home or rent without having to financially rely on me and my sister. So this is the plan we came up with. We found a house with a large lot that we bought under my name. My parents put down a significant amount of their savings for the down payment for the property and to build a detached accessory dwelling unit for them to live in. I lived in the main house for a while and my parents in the ADU. The agreement was once I moved out, we would rent out the main house. I would be responsible for the main house, maintenance, repairs, etc., and my parents are responsible for the ADU. We would split any property taxes not covered by the rental of the other property. I live in a very expensive area, so my parents will have a place to live for the rest of their lives with no stress about becoming homeless. And I end up with a great investment property that I already have quite a bit of equity in. I have the house in a trust. In the event of my untimely death, the ownership of the house will transfer to my parents, and then transfer to my partner or offsprings once they pass away. My wife wants me to change the trust to have the deed of the property go to her instead of my parents. She says she, of course, will let them live there, but wants control of the property if I die. I feel really uncomfortable signing over the house my parents paid for to her, even though it's in my name and I'm spending some money on property taxes and maintenance. I consider it their house since they have paid for everything. Part of the reason I feel uncomfortable is because when we were updating our life insurance policies once we got married, she made sure I removed my parents as beneficiaries and added her on as 100% beneficiary, but then refused to add me as a beneficiary to her policy and had 100% going to her sister. Am I the a-hole for refusing to sign the house over to her? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You married her, so it sounded pretty reasonable, until she made her sister the beneficiary and you just stayed married to her. Like, what is even going on here? What kind of marriage is this? She has some really amazing qualities, which is obviously why I married her, but she is a very strong, stubborn person, and I am extremely passive to a fault, so I feel like she's just walking all over me. Why are you still married to her? She is using you. I bet if you were to unfortunately pass away, she will boot your parents out of their home. Unfortunately, this all came up after we found out she was pregnant. Part of the reason I feel uncomfortable is because when we were updating our life insurance policies once we got married, she made sure I removed my parents as beneficiaries and added her on as 100% beneficiary, but then refused to add me as a beneficiary to her policy and had 100% going to her sister. Yeah, that's some red flags right there. Like, that's a big one right there. She's covered if you die, but you aren't if she dies. Not the a-hole, and I'd consider counseling at a minimum. I am going to counseling myself, but have not been able to convince her to go with me. I think she likes what you can provide for her more than she likes you. You should lock down all of your assets and change your insurance policy to your parents and/or sister. She won't even go to counseling with you to help the issues. I don't think she has your best interest or your family's in mind. Sounds like a black widow digger if such a thing exists. Sorry, honey, the house is in a trust. I won't change it. And change the subject. If she brings it up again, rinse and repeat. Not the a-hole. This trust was pre-marriage, so she gets squat. If you change it now, the argument could be made that it was made during marriage. Don't. I've used the argument a lot that I had this agreement before we met, but her response is, I made the agreement when I was single. Now that I have a family, the agreement needs to change. But she won't change her life insurance? Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling off my wedding after finding out my fiancé never had the money he promised to contribute? I, 33 female, have been with my partner, 32 male, for 5 years. He proposed in March 2024, and we agreed to get married in December 2025. He promised to cover 70% of the wedding costs and said he'd transfer money to my account whenever I paid for something. I ended up handling all the planning and bookings. By April this year, I had already paid around 500,000 local currency. But when I checked, he hadn't sent me a single cent. I kept reminding him, and he always said, "Yes, baby," after work. I work in an accounting firm with over 40 clients, so I'm insanely busy and didn't have time to double-check every day. But I trusted him. When we finally sat down to talk about it, I found out he didn't actually have the money. He planned to ask his parents or use future income, meaning he had been lying about having savings. All this time, he bragged about being financially stable and successful. He's a lawyer, but apparently it was all talk. I understand that people can go through tough financial times, but lying about it and letting me carry all the burden, that felt like a betrayal. I decided to call off the wedding and the relationship. Now he's throwing the wedding expenses in my face, even though I did all the work. My parents think I should go through with it since the engagement has already been announced to family. Am I the a-hole for calling it off? I feel heartbroken, used, and honestly, fooled. And seriously, if you can't afford to get married, why propose in the first place? You didn't call off a wedding, you canceled a subscription to nonsense. Good for you. Thanks. That honestly made me laugh. I needed to hear that. Calling off the wedding was a sensible and self-respecting decision. You deserve a partner who is honest and reliable, especially when it comes to finances. Not the a-hole, but to be clear, this is about the lying and betrayal, not necessarily about the money. Yeah, it's the dishonesty that broke me, not just the lack of money. If he had been upfront, things might have been different. Thank God you found this out before you got married. As they say, money problems don't start with money. What if this had been your mortgage payment or school fees? Those aren't optional expenses, and there can be huge repercussions for non-payment. I say good on you for holding your boundary. Also, don't fall for the sunk cost fallacy. Yes, you announced it to family, but if they love you, they'll support you. Better to be a little embarrassed now than waste more time and have to pay for a divorce attorney and separate assets later. Because you already announced it is among the worst reasons to go through with a marriage. I'd rather save my future than to save face, Limao. You don't commit to someone because of what your parents, relatives, or friends expect. You commit because you trust the person, and he broke that trust. For real, if trust is broken before the marriage, what more after? Not worth the risk. And to be honest, it's really non-negotiable for me. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my dad's future stepdaughter stay with me for a week when my dad and his fiancée go on their honeymoon? My dad's engaged to a woman named Clara, and Clara has a 13-year-old daughter, Elizabeth. I don't live with my dad and Clara. I, 21 male, rent a place with my girlfriend, 21 female. We have a spare bedroom and we've had family members stay with us before. Because of this, and because Elizabeth doesn't have a dad or extended family in her life, and because nobody in our family will take Elizabeth for the week, my dad is pressuring me to let her stay with us for the week. Elizabeth's a brat and a spoiled one too. She thinks she's entitled to do what she wants, when she wants. My grandparents babysat her several times before they said no more. The last straw was her taking $20 from my grandparents' room to buy herself snacks, and she left the house and went to the store without asking. She'd snooped in other rooms of the house before. She broke stuff in their house before, like a vase, a picture frame, and the handle of one of the kitchen cabinets. She's cursed at different members of my family, flipped them the bird, yelled at younger kids in the family, and has stolen food from their plates too. Specifically, the younger members of the family. We've had our encounters too. When I visited Dad and she tried to take my phone after I said no and was willing to fight me for it. Or when she got into my face because I didn't bring my PS5 over to Dad's house. I avoid going to Dad's house because I don't want to deal with Elizabeth. My dad knows about all of this. He's choosing to sign up to be Elizabeth's stepdad, but he's saying that I should sign up to be her brother and help her, and I told him, no freaking way. We fought about it because he sees me allowing her to stay as showing good faith in the new family, and he told me Elizabeth will be around for the rest of my life, so I should try to get along. He told me she needs to go somewhere, and she's not going on honeymoon with him and Clara. I told him to pay someone to watch her because whoever gets stuck with her deserves it. He told me she's not that bad and it's only a week, and it's not like I can't have people over. My dad's not backing down, but neither am I. He's getting more angry about it and maybe worried that he'll need to spend the money on finding someone to stay with her. He told me this isn't how family treats each other and all kinds of crap. And look, I know Elizabeth's only 13. I know teens are moody. I know she's probably got her own trauma and stuff. So I'm coming here to ask if I'm the a-hole for refusing to let her stay for the week my dad's on his honeymoon. Because my dad sure thinks so, and I know Clara does too. She thinks we're all a-holes for not giving her daughter more of a chance. Now for the top comments. First off, even if Elizabeth would be an angel, your dad's planning would be weird. You hardly know the girl. You're a young man, sharing a place with your girlfriend. That's just weird. I'm talking as a father of 2 grown-up daughters. If I had a new girlfriend or a fiancé, I would never ever expect my grown-up daughters to babysit new partner's teenage kid. The thought would have never crossed my mind. Given Elizabeth's rap sheet, your father pressuring you is beyond weird. It's downright evil. The whole "this isn't how family treats each other" spiel is just emotional blackmail and should be treated as such. By the way, tell your father emotional blackmail isn't how family treats each other. Please don't give in. Thank you. I'm prepared to stand strong on this and hold on to my no. My dad doesn't like it, and I know he's stressing, but he needs to figure out an alternative solution. And what happens, OP, when the brat doesn't get her own way and out of spite accuses you of inappropriate touching or worse? If you are to concede, you must never be alone with her and must have hidden audio or video cameras for your protection. I'd actually be more afraid of her assaulting me, and in my attempt to stop her, I'd be accused. I think that's more her style because she can be very aggressive. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling others about the family therapist firing my dad and his wife? My mom died when I, 16, was 11. My dad remarried last year. I didn't like it and I acted up. I still don't like it, full disclosure. But I was a terror and made life harder for them. I felt like dad betrayed me and my mom by marrying again, and so fast too. But my biggest thing was they expected her to slot right in, like she was suddenly my parent too, and someone who got to make decisions for me. It was things like giving me new chores, telling me how to dress and what I should eat, where I should and shouldn't go, trying to make me explain my homework to her and expecting to let her review it. Stuff like that I hated, and I would get so mad that I'd scream at her, and at dad when he backed her up. So I'd sneak out. I was rude to them. I wouldn't listen to her and other stuff like that. My dad tried talking to me, but he talked to me before he met her too. He made promises about how it would be just us until I was ready to move out. He promised me he needed a lot of time before he could think about dating again because he loved my mom so much. Then he's already dating someone and they're getting married, and I was still 15 and couldn't just leave. And not only that, but he was acting like she was now my parent too. I felt like that wasn't fair. He'll date and keep her from moving in. But they had clearly talked about how she'd be a parent once she moved in, because they were on the same page with that stuff. When things were getting so bad that dad was worried I'd run away, and I considered it, and I stayed out all night sometimes. He told us we needed family therapy. Strike one in family therapy was my dad and his wife refused the therapist's suggestion of each of us getting solo sessions too. They just wanted the group sessions. Strike two was the way they would talk over me when I was asked what I would be okay with or would like to see. The therapist said if me, the teen, could listen, then so could they. Strike three was dad arguing back against the therapist and his wife calling her useless. Dad said she was not giving good advice and that he didn't need to consult me on who could and couldn't come into our home or help him parent me. He said he didn't care if he had sounded like an ass to me, but he had decided his wife was deserving of equal respect and authority. Strike four, which was the final strike, was they refused to compromise. I already had. I stopped being so disrespectful and getting into so much trouble. I did ignore my dad's wife a lot because I couldn't handle talking to her with how she talked to me. But I wouldn't go anywhere without asking or stay out all night, and I didn't call her and I stopped calling her names. But they refused to discuss her not being my parent. The therapist even told me if she got them to agree, it would be reevaluated and discussed more over time, that she might end up with some parental-like authority eventually. But they said she was staying my parent, and they weren't willing to discuss it. They told the therapist she was meant to make me get on board with that. So the therapist told them they were wasting her time, and she wouldn't see us all anymore. She did say she'd continued to see me since I worked with her, but my dad said no way, and so none of us are going back. They're angry that she fired them. I found it hilarious. I told my friends, I told different family members, I told the neighbor who Dad would tell all our crap to before. And my dad hates it. He told me I'm trying to humiliate them, and it's personal business, not public. I told him if he could tell people our business, then so could I. He told me I was enjoying it too much. Then we got into another fight. But hey, I just went into my room instead of sneaking out. Dad and his wife are blaming me because Dad's side of the family are giving them crap for getting fired from therapy. Am I the a-hole? It takes a lot for a therapist to break up with a patient. They must have been really, really bad and challenging to work with. See if your school counselor can help you find someone else just for yourself. You are a few years away from adulthood. You need the tools to deal with the present and to plan for your future. They wouldn't do any of the work. They wanted me to be the only one changing things. Sounds like your dad is willing to throw away a future with you for this woman. I'd tell that's exactly what he's doing. And when I turned 18, I'd be gone from his life and let him end up sad, miserable, and alone. OP's dad married a woman who sounds controlling. You can't come into a teenager's life and think you're going to have control and authority over them just like that. Heck, even a biological parent who has been absent and suddenly appears in their teenage years couldn't do that. Teenagers are almost adults. Authority to them comes with years of respect and familiarity. Dad is stupid. He is going to lose his daughter over this woman's control fetish. Tell her to have her own damn kids if she wants to boss someone around so badly. When OP moves out, that bossy energy will need a new target, and Dad will be the only one around. Let's see how he likes being told what to do. Not the a-hole. It is a funny story to tell everyone. They were fired because the therapist didn't do what they wanted her to do. They were fired because the therapist agreed with OP and not them.